Logan is a bland movie. It's a very bland movie. It's technically well done. It's fairly well written. Dialogue's pretty good. Acting's well done. Action is fine. Cinematography is fine. Some of the special effects are below par, but most of them are pretty good. So on a technical level, it is a perfectly reasonable film. It is, however, written and directed and in many ways acted straight from the book of tropes and cliches, which is a very interesting thing because the film is praised so heavily, and I understand some of the reasons why the movie is praised, partially because it does not live in a vacuum. It lives in an environment to where films are judged against each other, and compared to most other films in its genre, it's fine. It's serviceable. It's fine. I was very excited to see Logan. I was very excited to see Logan for a number of reasons, not least of which because I'm a ex-soldier who has a child with behavioral problems, including violent outbursts. And so when I saw the trailer and I saw what I assumed was going to be the core drive of the film, I was rather excited. I thought that was a impactful and underserved issue, and I was very interested to see how they played it out. Unfortunately, as I watched the film, I realized that they were not interested in dealing with any particular idea except that experimenting and murdering children is wrong, which, if our society has reached a point to where that needs to be reiterated for 2 hours, then perhaps we have issues that a film needs to be exploring besides that. I wanted to see that film for that reason. I wanted to dive into that difficulty, into the emotional resonance that comes from that. The film went from cliche to cliche, trope to trope, and every time it would enter into a sequence that has been done to death, brought in by a kind family, for instance, I was waiting eagerly to see how they might undermine that sequence as it's played out in multiple things, but they don't. They do very, very little to undermine anything. The movie only broke my expectations one time, and it was very brief. Besides that, I found the movie to be very predictable, which led me to ponder deeply as to why this movie even exists. I understand that the movies exist to make money, but that's I'm not sure I can completely bring myself to agree with that statement. Movie studios exist to make money. Movies are the means that they make money. People that make movies, if they're in the business of making movies to make money, they're in the wrong business. There are a lot easier ways to make money than to get into a creative field as demanding as filmmaking. There is no higher level creative endeavor like directing or editing or writing or acting. Those four take immense amounts of skill and talent and effort and perseverance. You look at the body of work of the greats, of the individuals, and how much time and effort they spend on each masterful project, how much they really build into it. It's difficult to take that lightly. It's difficult to look at that as being a simple thing. The more I pondered on this, the more I thought, how deep the postmodern thought of Death of the Author has really infiltrated into every single aspect of artistic endeavor. I'm beginning to believe that the point of this movie is that it doesn't have a point. There is no central message besides the incredibly overdone and bland issue of parental. They have the three generations, the grandparent, the parent, and the child, and the relationships between the three play out very predictably according to very stereotypical tropes, very stereotypical plot mechanisms. And I take a step back and it's like, what is it that they're trying to do here? What is it that they're trying to say? Are they trying to say anything? Or are they just trying to make what would be categorized as a quote-unquote good film? And what I find nefarious about this is its vagueness. It's so vague that you can imprint anything onto any other thing. So the vague bad guys that do specifically bad things, but they do specifically bad things for ultimately vague reasons. The create the super soldier concept. Why? For what point? What does a super soldier serve? What point does a super soldier serve? And what difference does it make if you have super soldiers? If they're so costly to create, they don't gain you anything. And what good would a super soldier have in a world with cyber terrorism and nuclear bombs when you can shut down an entire country's infrastructure with a Trojan horse virus or something along those lines, with ransomware, or just blow it all up with nuclear bombs? So what really... It's not about the super soldier, it's just that it's a threat. And it's this threat, this vague threat that has a vague goal that's vaguely bad. Because what if they were trying to make the perfect fireman? You know, a clone of Wolverine would be the perfect fireman, wouldn't it? Impervious, would heal, could save people. So it's not even... It's the methodology that they're saying. They're saying, oh, this is the wrong way, and these are the wrong people, and that's what makes it wrong. That's what makes trying to make this perfect, controllable super soldier wrong. Doesn't even really talk as to why they're making it. It focuses only on the wrongness of their methods, namely experimenting on children. And then you have some of this vague subtleness of poisoning the population, genetic genocide, which you could also play into cultural genocide, and that they're trying to undermine the vague good, which is the mutants, the vague good, and dealing with it as an entire group rather than dealing with the particulars of the individual, which is fine. You want to deal with the group, but they don't deal with the group. They keep it vague. They're not dealing with the fullness of what that group might be. They're dealing with the vagueness, the idea of a group, not even the idea of the group, but the idea of a group. That there is a group that is good and a group that is bad. And they keep that so vague that you can imprint anything on that. And I understand that they do that so that they can have as broad of an appeal to as broad of an audience as possible, because the more specific you get about things, the more you work on a subject, the more your ethos, the more your own personality, your own thoughts, your own everything pours into it, which happens across writing so much that anyone that's created anything and then had it critiqued by someone else, they see you differently. They don't just see your work differently, they see you differently. And knowing the person that makes the work makes you see the work differently. So these things are interconnected. They affect one another. It's not just a correlation, but there's also causation, apparently. And so the fact that they have this vagueness and they purposely keep it vague, makes me take a step back and go, okay, what is the point of this? Because if the point is to have no point, what's the point of having no point? And I think the point of having no point is that you can always morph it to agree with you. You can take a film like Logan, a story like Logan, and it always agrees with you. You never are challenged by a story like Logan, because you always insert the bad guy that you think is bad into the bad group, and you assert the group that you think is good into the good group. And it doesn't matter what group it is that you are a part of, you can do that, because they keep these groups so purposely vague. And you can say, oh, I need to fight against the bad group. I need to protect the young new members of the good group, because I'm part of the good group. And I need to, in some way, honor, but at the same time rebel, because that's an ethos of our culture, is rebelling against authority and wisdom, which, talk about counterproductive. Why would I ever want to learn from someone that's gone through all this before? No, let's just pretend that they don't exist and call them stupid. That makes sense. Let's pretend that those that haven't done all of this stupid stuff before have nothing to say. And let's go talk to those that have no clue what they're talking about, namely young people, those that have never done any of this. Let's ask them what they have to say, because they have such deep knowledge on things that they haven't done. But they have a theory. It just happens to be the exact same theory that the old person had when they were young. And that's where these cycles of politics come from. Cycles of stupidity. And that builds right into this story of Logan, this story of Wolverine or whatnot. Same mistakes, different flavors. So he feels rejected from his father figure, so what does he do? He rejects his daughter. And of course you have to have the point to where the father, the grandparent, accepts the father, and then the part to where the father accepts the parent, or the child. And that usually ends in a big action scene, and the hero dies or they don't die. But of course, they're not really that heroic. They're only heroic in the way that a grizzly bear is heroic. A grizzly bear fights for its cubs. Okay, is that heroism, or is that natural instinct? Is it heroic to do what you're naturally inclined to do? Or is it heroic to not do what you're naturally inclined to do? And that's the entire insidiousness of a film like Logan, is because it's not redirecting you. It is a 2-hour confirmation bias. No matter what group you're in, it is 2 hours of confirming, yes, you're right, and you need to fight against those who are wrong. And it doesn't matter what the nuance of the other group is, you just need to fight them because they're wrong. And of course, the way that you fight them is to violently murder all of them. Woohoo! Because that's what our world needs, is more groups believing that they need to violently murder the other group. And we say, well, it's just a movie, which is an absurd statement. These mechanisms of storytelling, namely movies and video games, are some of the most consumed, expensive, and widespread propaganda, philosophy, teaching mechanisms of the world right now. And so to say it's just a blank completely removes the power that those things have. They have immense amounts of power. That's why Disney in the 40s and 50s starts saying, just believe in yourself. And here we are 3 generations later with a bunch of people that are just trying so darn hard to believe in themselves. And they're killing themselves in mass numbers because they find out that believing in themselves doesn't get them a job, doesn't give them meaning. They find out that there's not much of themselves to believe in. So I don't like this film. I wanted to like it. I really wanted to like it. But at the end of the day, I sat back after watching it, and I was upset. I was upset by it. I was upset by its blandness. But not just its blandness, but its insidious blandness. And I guess that's, yeah.